Welcome. So today we will start with Yojana, the edition for July, and this edition specifically focuses on India's various schemes. So the first one that we would talk today is the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. Now Mudra Yojana is a scheme specifically to address the credit issues and for the micro and small enterprises. So the total beneficiaries and the total disbursement so far has been mentioned here. Now what is the basic idea under Mudra scheme? People who do not have bank accounts, they should have a bank account. Now once they are under a bank account, they would secure the people who are either not insured or who are underinsured, and finally the funds would be dispersed to them. Now this way of bringing in funds for the villages, for the rural people, would bring in development in the rural areas. So far if we see, the total amount that was sanctioned has been significantly high, around 30 crores in the year 23-24, and this amount has been sanctioned so far in 24-25 is around 5 lakh, so 5 crores so far, 5 lakh crores so far, right? Now also if we look onto the amount which is disbursed versus that is sanctioned, you would see there has been a huge amount that has already been disbursed, and this actually is very important because these loans are unsecured, so there is no burden on small and micro enterprises. There is a guarantee for the credit, so it removes the risk of lenders. The flexible repayment options are there. This system is easily available through the Uday Mitra portal, and that actually brings in easy integration and easy availability. The rates for the loans are very affordable, so this provides a huge scope for people to actually disburse the loans as they procure them. Now we have numerous stories which talk about the ambitions turning into reality with the help of the loans that were passed under the Mudra scheme. Now the next one is understanding and analyzing the surge. So we can see from 2016 to 2025 there has been a significant surge in the credit accessibility. Now these disbursements have been highest in the states of Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, West Bengal and Bihar, and we have also seen those in other parts of the country, but these are some of the leading states in terms of disbursement. Now what happens is there is the key portal that runs, so the informal micro entrepreneurs actually work with Udyam Assist platform, and then there is the credit that is disbursed to their accounts. Now this works in 3 stages. The Shishu stage is for the initial people who are starting a project as a new loan. Then there is the Kishore and the Tarun loans. Now of the total loans that are disbursed, we would see a very significant goes into the Kishore loans. That means those are which are in the relatively stable stage of their project. And then there has been a sudden jump in the share of Kishore and Tarun loans, which is again an indicative that there are better businesses nurturing, and there is an inflow of capital which is required for these systems to flourish. Now again, Tarun and Tarun Plus loan account for nearly 30% of the total portfolio, and then we have the remaining ones which are under the Shishu and the Kishore loans. Now the next one is the Pradhan Mantri's Mudra Yojana's ambition. So the basic idea, as we said, is to empower the entrepreneurs, bring in more employment opportunity, simplify the credit requirements, bring in development of micro enterprises, and reduce poverty ultimately. So these loans have been linked to livelihood, and there has been a positive correlation which has been seen where people are taking loan and where the rate of multidimensional poverty index has been falling. So there has been a significant positive correlation However, there is wider untapped potential in the various stages that are seen. So, if we talk about the per capita usage in the densely populated state, we would say that the national average actually works with a per capita uptake of around 100. However, northeastern states, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh are way behind the per capita national average for the usage, right? The next is to have a better impact. The main idea is to bring in financial literacy, bring in awareness campaigns, and this would ultimately lead to better growth. So, as we talked about the Mudra scheme, we need to understand how this refinancing works. So, Mudra is a refinancing agency. It works through banks, non-banking financial corporations and MFIs, and then it disburses the loans to the micro entrepreneurs. Now, the amount of loan that is sanctioned, disbursed, and going on, it's very, very important. So, it focuses on an inclusive growth, and this is the vision for the Viksit Bharat. The next is understanding the entrepreneurship. Now, entrepreneurship skilling is one of the very major focuses because we are talking about India as the youth capital, and formally skilled workforce in India is very meager, around 4%, 4.7%, which goes to Germany at around 75% and South Korea at 96%. That means even for vocational education, the people are not trained, and this brings in a huge GDP loss, which is attributed due to mismatch with the emerging technologies that are there. So, if we talk about the entrepreneurship journey, we see the launch of Ridisit, which is in Karnataka. It was an effort to collaborate with rural youth for entrepreneurship. Then it was adopted by the government as RCTs, which is the Rural Self-Employment Training Institutes. And so far, there are 600 rural self-employment training institutes which operate countrywide with nearly 35 lakh people trained, and they actually have a big support system, but still a low skill population trained in India is attributed to outdated courses, low participation, and no follow-up activities. So a top-down approach must be followed rather than a bottom-up approach, and this would involve switching from the old model of uniform targets to having a targeted high potential training which would be led by various sectors, and this would actually modernize the existing curriculum, bring in better support system, and better driving for the upskilling, right? The next is the middle class in India. So if we talk about the middle class has been expanding rapidly, and it is believed in the next 20 years the middle class would jump from 30% to somewhere around 60%, and that would be a huge upward trajectory which talks about the consumption and the development patterns. So we have seen since 2013-14 there were around 3.9 crore taxpayers, which have increased to 9 crores. Now this has been attributed again to simplification of the taxing systems, bringing in of major tax reforms, compliance systems, easy compliance mechanisms, faceless assessment, AI compliance, and quick filing, and also increase of the tax limits to 7 lakh and then 12 lakh with deductions. So it brings in a huge ambit of population under the group who are actually filing the tax returns. Then if we talk about economy, the inflations have been a significant factor in making economies viable. So if we talk about 2004 to 2014, the inflation was somewhere at around 8%, the retail inflation. However, as of now, we see the retail inflation at 2.8%, which has been a significant reduction. But at the same time, we have seen that the interest rates, which were somewhere at 8% in 2014, declined to less than 4% in 2020, went somewhere up in 2022 again, but are further declining since then. The next is social security in India. So national pension system, NPS, is one of the ways through which contributions can be done. So in the old system, there was an equal contribution of employee and government. Under the new system, the government contribution has significantly improved. And then there has been a concept which is the unified pension scheme, which came in April 2025, and it guarantees substantial pension for those who have completed 25 years of service and brings in a stable income post retirement. So 25 years of service, 50% of the final 12 months average basic pay would be the basic idea, and if you complete 10 to 24 years of service, then the pension would be somewhere with a minimum insured 10,000 per month on a pro-rate basis, right? So family security, if a family receives 60% of the assured pension, that is in the case of an unfortunate event that has happened to the employee, and that would bring in support for the family. Also, the impact has been affecting nearly 23 lakh central employees, and the beneficiaries for the NPS are somewhere around 90 lakh. So again, a significant figures that way. The next is the Awas Yojana, the PM Awas Yojana. Then in this, if we talk about the sanctioned, constructed and completed houses, they are significantly high. Around 1 crore sanctioned and constructed houses have been there, of which we see a financial support has been dispersed to significant amount of families. Now the next scheme is PM Surya Graha Yojana for providing 60% subsidy on solar. So it is offered for the first 2 kilowatts of rooftop solar capacity to reduce the initial cost. Then there is 2 lakh collateral free loan and 6.75 concession interest that would be provided for a 10-year repayment. Now the process to apply for solar loan is simple. You have to simply log on to Surya Graha portal, have a banking application processed, and then you would easily receive the loan for the same. The next is connectivity. Now connectivity is through the infrastructure, so road, rail and waterways, of which road and rail are considered as the major ones. Now these have been under the Udan scheme. We are talking about democratization of the key pillars. So if we focus on the urban areas, metro expansion has been significant. The pace at which the metro ridership has increased is nearly 1.12 plus crore, and the network length for the metros has significantly grown from 200 kilometers to nearly 1000 kilometers of metro network areas which have been cited. The budgetary allocations have significantly increased over the years, and then for the Udan scheme, we have seen that the number of airports have significantly increased from 74 to nearly 160 airports in 2025. Nearly 1.5 crore passengers have benefited because of low-cost regional flights, and its impact engine has affected bringing in significant investment, action and outcomes in the region. The next is the poverty. So nearly 70% population live below poverty line, 67% population lack basic education, and the poverty gap among the women for the poverty and the education is highly correlated, as you can see on both the curves. So one is for poverty, the other one is for education. Now under the 73rd amendment, we talked about the Gram Swaraj, villages being self-reliant or self-governance in villages. So it was with the Gandhi's vision that this was brought in and finally came into an implemented system. So there are 3 tiers: village level is Gram Panchayat, then Panchayat Samiti or the block level, and Zilla Parishad or the district level. And this also brings in significant impact of women leadership, with 50% seats being considered for women. Now this has brought in decrease in domestic violence, brought in greater financial independence for the females, and reduced the corruption at major level. The next is, as we have seen women rising in the local governance, we have seen that nearly 46% of the total elected representatives were women, and this accounts for a significant portion in local decision making. We have nearly 29 lakh total representatives, of which 13 lakh women are actually into leadership roles. So constitution has brought it a mandate for 1/3 of reservation, but at many places we have seen up to 50% women seats being occupied at the grassroots level. On the nationwide level, if we see, the highest representation of women is seen in Jharkhand, Odisha, which is far above the national average, but there are states like Manipur which is far below the national average. And now it's more than numbers, because we are challenging the existing hierarchical system, we are reducing the domestic violence, we are bringing in financial independence, and bringing in the true meaning of governance and democracy. So what have been the barriers so far? So the barrier is a male dominated society, a politically dominated society by male, illiteracy, lack of education, and systematic gaps which are seen in training, in political interference, and in violence against women. So education, awareness, training, authority, extended rotation of the seats for women every 10 years, bringing in a support system are some of the ways through which inclusion can be brought with a greater aspect. Now, of the total allocation of women empowerment, we have seen there has been a significant budget where nearly 8.86 talks about commitment towards gender equity, and we have seen that there has been a women empowerment report which was brought in 2001, and finally we are talking about a budget focusing on structural empowerment with record allocations. Now the key investment has gone into Ministry for Rural Development, Department of School Education, Awas Yojana Gramin, and Mission Shakti, and the economic agencies through housing has seen nearly 70% increase in Awas Gramin funding, 15 million women which are skilled for digital literacy, and 16.6 crore women have benefited from the schemes which reduce the out-of-pocket expenditure in medical cases, right? So Mudra scheme, Stand Up India, then for digital divide we are having the BharatNet, then Atal Tinkering Labs have been established, and remote learning initiatives have been developed. The next is for climate change. Nitrogen is considered as one of the major reasons for climate change, and 5 to 10% of the emissions are mainly because of nitrogen pollution. 17% of the total fertilizers of the world actually are responsible for global nitrogen cycle, and in India we have lost nearly 67% because of the fertilizers to the environment, and for the crops it is absorbed by nearly 33%. That means that 2/3 of the fertilizers actually leach into the groundwater and enter into the nitrogen cycle. This has increased the pollution concentration. The hottest spots are Punjab and Haryana specifically, where green revolution was seen as a boon. And then if we want to have a sustainable future, we need to launch a national nitrogen mission, improve awareness among farmers, bring in the hot spot seats where we can say that these are the states where highest amount of nitrogen emissions are recorded, and then precision farming becomes very, very important. So reducing the emissions, increasing the yield of the crop, protecting the ecosystem are some of the important steps that must be taken into account. Now if we talk about the digital landscape, 20% of the GDP we project would be based on the digital economy, and this digital economy would offer a significant sector of the total GDP. Internet has seen a significant surge in last 10 years, from 100 million connections to nearly 750 million connections across India. Also the telephones from the rural areas and the urban areas have seen a sharp jump in the urban areas. The data has become significantly affordable. Back 10 years it was nearly 300 per GB, which has reduced to only 10 rupees per GB. So data has gone cheap. Also we have seen that there has been numerous 5G base stations being established in the last 2 years. There has been nearly 2 lakh villages connected with BharatNet. Fintech phenomena has seen with nearly 24 lakh crores of monthly UPI transactions, and this has brought in a significant footprint. Also, our UPI is now valid in UAE, Singapore, Nepal, France, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Mauritius, which indeed is an indicative of the growing UPI usages across India. Also, citizens are now using the apps like DigiLockers, Umang successfully, and there are numerous people who are already on the platform. Bringing in a digital literate nation is again important. For this, we have employed nearly 1 crore civil servants on Karm Yogi Bharat, who are actually reshaping the education system, not only digital education, but again we are talking about education for all, which encompasses the idea of adult education. The next is human capital, and training the human capital is important. So skills prime, upskilled and completed are very important. And then we are focusing on electronic system design and manufacturing scheme, which talks about how many people who have been trained are actually placed into the system. Then India is talking about a national AI mission, which was launched in March 2024, and it talks about establishing India as one of the major leaders for artificial intelligence. National Quantum Mission, which is a 8-year project, has been started, where we aim to develop quantum computers, build quantum networks, and have advanced quantum materials. We are also talking about self-reliance in semiconductors. So of the 76,000 crores of total mission layout, nearly 1.55 lakh crores have been approved for the budget, and this mission would provide 50% fiscal support for setting up fabrication labs with 6 major projects, of which 5 are in advanced construction stage. We are also bridging the gap of language through the Bhashini app, which is the translation app. And this aims to bring in a new section of people integrated into the mainstream. The next is the emergency. Now, emergency, the various amendments have been very important. So amendment 38, 39 and 42, very important. 42 being called as the mini constitution of India. And then if we talk about amendment 42, it prioritizes numerous approaches which focuses on DPSPs, fundamental rights, extended legislature terms, talking about limiting the powers of Supreme Court, High Court, restricting citizens from approaching the court. And pre-emergency and during the emergency, you can see how the democracy was restricted in terms of free press, autonomy of legislature, electoral integrity and civil liberties. And then there was a change in the tenure of Lok Sabha. How we have seen the human cost have been borne because of the emergency have been discussed. And then we talk about smart solutions. Two important examples that have been taken are from Tinsukia, Assam, and Prakasham, Andhra Pradesh. And this talks about, one talks about from Assam about the small scale tea growers and bringing seasonal comfort for them in hot climate. The other one talks about the opportunity to bring in safe devices for line workers at field. So if we talk about the case study from Assam, it is the hot climate. The AC is actually a luxury. So affordable escape from heating could be brought under systematic efforts. And there has been a BDS model, which is a dryer which is available with several models that could be done with a minimum and a maximum price range that has been cited. And in the case of Andhra Pradesh, it is to actually create a simple device which could be used by the line workers, which will bring in ease of use, confident climbing and hands-free work. So this supports up to nearly 150 kg, allowing users to carry tools and work with better ease. The next is food safety, which is one of the most important things. 1 in 10 people are falling ill because of adulteration of the food, and therefore a scheme DART has been introduced. Now DART is detecting adulterants with rapid testing. It is collection of simple tools that you can perform at home to identify if there are contaminants in the food. Some of the common adulterants include dyes, chemicals, fillers and contaminants. So for the green vegetables, if the vegetable look very green, possibly it is malachite green, which is a chemical dye and it is toxic in nature. It is just given in the vegetables to give it a greener look. For chilies, for bitter gourds, then lead chromate is seen in turmeric, which is again a neurotoxic. So these are all adulterants which have a high risk for an individual. So food adulteration, again a very important topic that has been discussed in this Yojana edition. So this was about today's Yojana edition. In case you have any questions or queries, feel free to connect back. We do cover Yojana, Kurukshetra and Down to Earth on regular basis. Thanks for joining in. Have a great day ahead.